This is the Surly Grognards for the 6th of February, 2017. This is Peter Bowman, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Eric Carlson. How are you doing tonight, Eric?
Doing all right.
Most excellent. So we actually have a topic for this week, sent in by one of the viewers.
Hooray!
This was sent to us by Clockwork Runt. Says, I've got a topic suggestion. I was wondering your guys' opinions on game system archetypes. Like, for example, class-based systems, Dungeons & Dragons is an example, compared to, say, point-based systems like Myths and Masterminds. As well as your thoughts on the traditional six stat, charisma, intelligence, wisdom, strength, constitution, dexterity stat game systems in comparison to a tri-stat, bi-stat, or monostat games, stat meaning a number that influences other numbers. The monostat is referred to as movement, health, and proficiency, but proficiency gives you new abilities, and talent, so it's the only one counted as a stat. Also, finally, games like D&D that use a variety of dice, or games that only use one type of die. Thank you for your time. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, actually.
All right, so if you've been paying attention to us talking on stream, talking on the show at all when we talk about our system preferences, it will not surprise you to hear that, at very least me, and I believe Eric is sort of a similar place overall, I really prefer point-by systems.
Yes. I don't mind classes. I think classes are, especially with the new system, as you sort of suss out how things work and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But, my God, I hate rolling for my stats. Even if I roll really, really well, I feel like I'm still somehow being cheated. Because, I don't know, I vastly prefer buying my stats with points.
Sure.
And sort of have two minds of the whole, like, pure freeform character creation and classes. Because freeform character creation really lets you sort of, like, if you already have an idea sort of gelled in your head, and really create what you're trying to do. Well, if you're more trying to sort of get a feel for things, a class can give you a starting point.
Sure.
And, I don't know, sometimes you can't do a superhero game with classes, and high fantasy feels like it should have some kind of class system, is basically what it boils down to.
I would disagree with you on both those, actually. You can do superhero games with classes. These more archetypes than classes. Because there tend to be... superheroes do tend to fit certain archetypes in terms of how they operate. You tend to have bricks. You tend to have bricks, blasters... brick/tank, whatever, however you want to describe it.
Right.
Blasters, scrapper. Like, seriously, the City of Heroes archetypes really nail down sort of the classic, superhero archetypes.
Sure, but I always, even in City of Heroes, I always felt slightly limited in what I could do. Or more limited than I'd want to be.
Oh, sure. I agree completely. I'm just saying...
Where, say, Champions, it's spiritual, not necessarily as good successor, sort of knocks out of the park with the freeform. Of course, you need to be subscribed to be freeform, which is bullshit. But hey...
No, you can buy freeform character slots. They're hideously expensive.
Yeah, for like $50.
Yes. Ow!
Yeah. Don't think I haven't looked at it, because I have.
I have also. I looked at it and I said, wow, and I thought ships in Star Trek Online were expensive.
Yeah. Just unreasonably overpriced.
And when I buy a ship in Star Trek Online, it locks it for my account.
Yeah, it unlocks it for all of your characters of that faction.
Yeah. That can theoretically use the ship.
Yes.
But at any rate, no, I agree with you that superheroes are much better served with freeform systems, with point-by systems. Freeform, everything's no classes. I agree completely. That is preferable for a superhero game. Totally agree. I'm just saying that you could do a good, well-designed superhero game with an archetype-type system. I mean, hell, you could probably do a fairly good superhero game using the feng shui rules.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say you could probably do a pretty damn good superhero game using feng shui. Well, that's because feng shui is built on the how awesome can I make this mechanic.
Yes. I agree. Yeah, basically. But no, I agree. For high fantasy, I sort of agree with you, but I feel sort of the same way about high fantasy that I do about superheroes, in that I think classes are, again, it's less. I mean, classes slash archetypes, whatever you want to call them. I sort of gravitate more towards archetypes than classes overall, sort of
Sure.
as a way to describe things. And I find that you can do a lot of stuff with classes, but virtually every class-based high fantasy game I've played ends up coming out with extra books with more and more classes to fill roles that they didn't put in originally. And at that point, you might as well just be able to pick and choose stuff that you want with certain limits.
Sure, I see what you're saying. But at the same time, part of that is a failure to make the classes flexible enough. Like fighter, paladin, barbarian, rogue. Those are your stabby classes, for lack of a better term.
And Ranger.
I guess you could call them martial. I prefer stabby.
Hit stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Ranger too. Ranger also.
Yeah, Ranger. Ranger and Paladin sort of sit in this sort of weird nebulous area where they typically have some spell casting, not always.
Depends on the edition of D&D.
It depends on the addition of D&D in the game system, yeah. But and then you've got the sorcerer, warlock.
Sure, I'm not saying you're wrong. You got you have tons of classes. You've got classes. It works. I'm just saying having played a bit of, having played fantasy games using GURPS that were reasonably high fantasy, although they were a little bit grittier because it's GURPS, and having done a little bit of experimentation with doing fantasy in Hero System. Honestly, Hero System's problem is, as it's always the problem, is that it's just so flexible that it's like
Yeah.
It sort of boils down.
Yeah, that's basically Hero's problem.
I love Hero System. I love it to pieces, and I find it. I mean, I've done lots of different styles of games in it, but I do find, and I love Point Buy. I love Point Buy for everything. Honestly, as I said, if I had the patience to sit down and really noodle out a good magic system that I'd want to use in Hero, then I probably would try running another Hero System game.
Right.
But that's going to take me time to do, and it's work.
Yeah. Come to think of it, I've never really done fantasy with GURPS.
It works very well.
Yeah.
It does. The official GURPS fantasy... it's been a long time since I played GURPS Fantasy. That was actually the first fantasy game I played. First GURPS game I played was Fantasy Campaign. I ran. Yeah. And if I remember correctly, the way it worked is in order to be able to buy any magic, basically all spells were basically skills, because it's GURPS. Of course they are.
Right.
And you needed to be able to use any at all. You had to buy magic aptitude. There are different levels, and the more magic aptitude you got, it gave you, each level you bought, you could buy 3, gave you a +1 bonus to all magic skills that you bought, and it did something else too, I think. But
yeah, and yeah, at some point I'd like to try a fantasy GURPS game. If for no other reason been because why not?
yeah, sure. I'd have to dig up. I'd have to find my GURPS fantasy book. Although my GURPS fantasy book's an old one, So it's
thousands of years old.
They've probably changed how it works. Yeah, I got into GURPS like in the mid to late '80s. I think it was sort of late '80s. Now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, late 80s. Because I was in high school.
I remember trying GURPS in the 90s, and then it was just sort of like a brief, like, let's try this system, okay, type of deal.
Right.
And enjoying that it was so flexible, because I had played Hero, and Hero had heard of and seen just how ridiculously daunting character creation was. But then like everyone was like, let's play D&D, let's play Shadowrun, let's play all these other systems, which was fun. Not gonna disparage it.
Oh no. I'm not. Again, as I've said, I'm not knocking the class systems per se. I just have a preference.
Yeah, and Shadowrun's another one that's like there are no classes. You have archetypes you can slide yourself into if you want, but they're hardly necessary.
Yeah. Well, especially with the later versions of it.
Real classes, like if you're going to be any kind of magically active, that's a big deal, and locks you out of other things. Not necessarily locks you out, but you start to suck at magic if you start putting on too much cyberware.
Right. Well, I mean, the other
cyberware,
like as an example, heroes, like in a hero fantasy game, as an example, if you want to, like, if you really want to, you can make a character who is a fighter who knows magic. That's entirely doable. Because it's hero system, you just pay the points for it. The problem is that magic, you're gonna have to pay. You have to pay points for your spells.
Which means you're not going to be as effective a fighter.
Right, and so it's going to eat up a lot of your points that you would dedicate to things that would make you better, fighting. So, it's the inherent, like, again, though, you could probably find a way to twink it out so you'd be ridiculous in some ways, but
Sure. That's
sort of the inherent sort of. That is actually, in all honesty, that's the inherent sort of flaw of a point-based systems in general. Is it's easier to min-max them in a lot of ways. Well, the potential for breaking the game by min-maxing tends to be a bit higher, unless there are design choices that the guys who did the people who designed the classes for a class-based system didn't do as thorough a job at balancing the classes as they could have, shall we say. I say for no reason.
Yeah. Looking at you, anything written by Palladium ever?
I was thinking 3rd edition D&D, but hey.
Yeah, that too.
But yeah,
be a fighter.
You can be a fighter.
Yeah, except past level 7, you really kind of were just you were the wizard's amazing sidekick at that point.
Well, it's sort of the classic, as people have described it. Fighters are linear, spellcasters are advanced quadratically. I mean, it's There's a linear. Fighters go, sort of just go up in a straight line in terms of how their improvement. And wizards as the higher they go, the more and more powerful they get. It just keeps accelerating
until they can unmake reality. Not even kidding.
And I know a lot of people, like, this is sort of one of those classics. Honestly, I know people who feel, and I understand where they're coming from on this, that they feel that is in some ways the way it should be. From a sort of because from a simulation standpoint, is that a very powerful wizard should be able to do stuff that, like, breaks stuff, because it's a high fantasy game and magic's supposed to be ridiculous. Magic is supposed to be the thing that allows you to break the way the universe works, because it's magic and that's what magic does. And I understand that, but at the same time.
Like, maybe I don't want to be a wizard.
Sure.
That's kind of the thing that always kind of bugged me most about a lot of high fantasy games is, like, I don't it feels like they're trying to push me into wizards and magic, and it's like I don't want to do that. Screw you! I don't want to be pushed in that. I'm going to go and hit things with a big stick. Barbarian, go!
And sure, I mean, I totally get it. I don't. I mean, I'll be honest. I played a lot of wizards because and not because they were quote more powerful, but because I wanted to play a wizard.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm much more inclined to play a wizard in a game system where they're not the clear and obvious choice.
Sure.
Because I guess I just get to be contrarian sometimes.
You never.
Me never. No. Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. But at any rate, so that's the thing is, and that's the reason I like, I look at, and that's part of the reason I like doing, I like hero fantasy conceptually is because, there are sort of inherent sort of limitations on because you have to pay for your power.
Right. And theoretically, you do that in Dungeons & Dragons because you have lower base hit points and less skills and blah, 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 blah.
Except you don't have less skills than the fighter.
No, you do not have less skills than the fighter. You have less skills than everyone but the fighter. I think the wizard actually has more skills than the fighter, thinking about it.
I forget what the wizard
has 2 skill points per level, and the wizard gets 4.
I forget what the wizard gets 4. The clerics also only get 2 per level.
Right, but yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yes, but they're spellcasters, so they cheat.
But they're spellcasters, and they get to wear heavy armor without fucking up their magic.
Yep.
Which I always kind of thought was kind of funny, Like, why does magic fuck up my... Why does armor fuck up my magic? There was no in-game reason for it beyond it. You can't move your arms right to cast your wacky spells. And... I don't know, that was a dumb reason for me. There were other better reasons, like... Metal fucks up the flow of the mana or whatever. There are 1,000 other better explanations.
That was the explanation. There are games where that is the explanation.
Yes. I'm thinking
Rollmaster specifically, actually.
Yes. Rollmaster. That game was so awesome when I was in middle school.
But yeah, Rollmaster, its big thing. Mages could wear leather armor. Metal armor screwed them up. Like you can't. I forget whether it was spell failure chance or what have you, but
right,
or whether it just said no, you can't cast spells while wearing metal armor. Having that much metal on you it just gets in the way of magic somehow for magical reasons because it's magic.
And that's why Mr. T can't cast magic. Not because he's an actual human being in the real world.
I don't know, Mr. T. I think Mr. T probably could cast magic. It's because all his stuff's gold, and gold never seems to interfere with magic.
That's true.
It's stuff. It's stuff that's based off of iron, which ties in sort of the thematic stuff with the Fae
thing.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, like if you can get the training to wear armor, because it does require training to wear armor.
Yes.
Then. Cool, go for it. Throw your lightning bolts while wearing your armor. There might be some side effects for wearing full plate while throwing lightning bolts. Better make sure it's insulated. But call lightning you should be fine with.
But yeah, that's one of the things you could theoretically do. Like one of the things I liked about 4th edition, you would never do this because it's a terrible idea, but it is actually possible to get a mage into armor and be able to cast spells.
Right. They just pay the proficiency.
Yes, and you need there are certain stats you need for to be able
armor to be able to wear medium armor, and then medium armor to be able to wear heavy armor.
Something along those lines, yeah. And you basically see, okay, well, all right, I've got proficiency in this stuff. I want to be able to wear, I want to wear chainmail, so you need chain proficiency. That has a prerequisite of, I think, I forget how much strength and constitution.
There's Tachi with it. Strength Con 15.
There we go. Thank you, Tachi. So yeah, I mean,
Oh, that's for plate. Still, that's a significant investment for fucking plate mail.
yeah, strength 15 on a wizard. Yep.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
Which, yeah.
But yeah,
So yeah, I guess what it boils down to is I haven't really played a high fantasy point buy system,
right,
like full freeform system.
right.
Like thinking back on it, I can't. There was a brief attempt to do hero system that you did for fantasy with two of the party members that did not play well with others. I was totally part of that. I'm sorry. And that was it, really.
Yep. Again,
there was the sci-fi game stuck on in the medieval Dyson sphere that only did like 2 or 3 sessions.
That was a campaign concept. I love the concept of. I'm just not sure how the execution just wasn't working for me.
Yeah, it wasn't clicking with anybody. I don't think anyone's characters are clicking with them either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good ideas all around, just not fitting together properly.
Yep, and that happens sometimes. But yeah, so classically, we've talked about two of the genres. The genre that I feel is weirdly limited most by classes, honestly, is not superheroes and it's not fantasy. It's sci-fi.
Yeah. No, I'll totally agree with that. Because sci-fi is just so out there and weird.
I mean, honestly, my thing with sci-fi is a skill-driven genre.
Yeah.
And I mean, technically, again, you can do archetype. Again, sort of archetypes. There are archetypes.
Yeah, the space pirate and the star marine and the mad scientist, all that all clicks, all of that. But at the same time, I could totally make a mad scientist marine.
Sure. Totally. No, and that's the thing. Like I'm currently running. You're currently playing in a Star Wars game that I'm doing that's using the feng shui rules as a sort of a core for it, because the core mechanics.
Yeah, but Star Wars is fantasy with blasters. Let's be honest here.
To a large degree, but it's, and yet the thing is, feng shui is a sort of an archetype driven system that's very heavily skill based.
Yes, and there's so many fucking different archetypes for feng shui.
Yep, and
it was like, okay, here's my character concept. Boom, there's the archetype. It is even named the thing that you described. Oh, well, all right then.
Right,
this does everything I was looking to do. Okay.
But I look at, but even then, I look I think the feng shui archetypes are broad enough into themselves that it covers a lot. It covers a lot of they each of them covers a lot of sort of area.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
they're archetypes, not classes. There is a difference there.
There is, yes.
There's a lot of space to move around in an archetype.
And having played, when we played the D20 Star Wars game for a good long while.
Mm.
With our friend Chris running it. And I'm not a fan of the D20 Star Wars game for a number of reasons. The classes aren't really part of the problem, because again, they are and they aren't, because the reason the classes are a problem for me is as much as Star Wars is fantasy and fantasy with laser swords and blasters instead of bow and arrows and stuff. It's fantasy in space. Uh, Somehow the D20 Star Wars game D20 Star Wars sort of feels more like D&D than Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I'll agree. And part of that is Star Wars is inherently stupendously cinematic.
Yes.
And D&D is
especially
cinematic with D&D.
Sure, but it's not where
But it always feels a little forced. I'm not sure how to describe that.
Well, especially 3rd edition.
Yeah.
And earlier. 4th Ed definitely has a more cinematic feel to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4th Ed has a more cinematic feel to it. I haven't had a chance to try 5th Ed. I'd like to at some point, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
Right.
But yeah, D&D doesn't feel like it or classes rather don't necessarily feel like they click together all that well for sci-fi, because it's sci-fi. I mean, even doing the high space opera Captain Harlock versus the Dalek Empire. It's just sort of like, well, what if I want to play a good Dalek? Yes, you have the points to do that. Okay, then. Well, what if I want to play a bad scientist dinosaur with a fetish for weaponizing stuffed animals? Doable, right there. If you have the points, you can do it. Now I kind of want to play a mad scientist dinosaur that a fetish for weaponizing stuffed animals. Giant plushy teddy bears with machine gun eyes. Let me hug you! Daka, 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 daka. Go forth, my plushy minions!
Oh my God, Eric.
I have to keep that in mind next time I decide to do a completely ridiculous character.
Oh my God. All right. So from there, I mean, we should probably talk about some other stuff that Clockwork Run was asking about. So the bit about the sort of traditional 6 stats versus I'm not sure what Clockwork Run means by the tri-stat, bi-stat, or monostat games. I mean, stat meaning a number that influences other numbers.
With only like a considerably fewer stats, or with stats derived from a very small amount.
Right.
Oh shit! I can't remember the name of the system, but there's like 3 systems, and you have a bunch of like secondary and tertiary stats that are derived from those stats. I can't remember it for the life of me. Is it Fate? No, it's not Fate. Maybe it's Fate.
I'm certain I've played games with these things. I just don't recognize. I'm not sure. I'm not clicking with the terminology for it.
Right. And I've played games with both more and less stats than 3. I don't think I've ever played one with just 1 stat.
I've played one game that only had 3 stats. I played, which is the tri-stat system. That's sort of the core for Big Eyes, Small Mouth, and Silver Age Sentinels, and some other games.
Right.
Which was okay. And I've played games that have had way more stats than 6.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Hero System.
Looking at you, Hero System. Looking at you, some of the more lunatic versions of MechWarrior out there.
Oh my God.
Seriously, first edition MechWarrior, completely unfucking playable. Making a character takes 3 times as long as Hero System, and then the system that the actual game system is completely borked. But it had robots.
It had robots. This is true. Yeah, so my system for movement, health, and proficiency. Proficiency gave you new abilities and talents, so it's the only one that counted as a stat.
Yeah, I haven't played a system like that, honestly.
Yeah, me neither.
Whatever system that is. You know, I suppose that'd be like different proficiencies. Like I'm proficient in stabbing. I'm proficient in unstabbing. I'm proficient in like banana craft.
Banana craft, nice. Yeah,
It's important they'd be proficient in banana craft.
I mean, I guess, sort of thinking about it, like, so, I mean, you've got the classic, sort of D&D sort of stat thing, and then you've got, I mean, thinking about sort of different ways different games handle stats. There are games that have, like, primary and secondary stats also, I guess, is sort of one way to look at it. Primary stats that have secondary stats that are based off of them. Or, influence secondary statistics, like Feng Shui, for instance.
Yep.
And Hero System has them also. Hero System up until 5th edition had them. Up until 6th edition. Up until 6th edition, I should say.
Yeah, you've got secondary stats in a bunch of games. Like Shadowrun has the various pools and reaction.
Yep.
Whatchamacallit? Fucking Iron Kingdoms has defense, armor, initiative, willpower, all that.
Yep.
Stats.
GURPS has a few of those too.
Yep.
Yeah, and there are, D&D sort of does have things that are sort of derived off of your actual stats, but I guess they're more things that are modified by your stats that are given to you by your class, I guess, more realistically. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing: you're always going to have some kind of stats in a game. Like even a diceless system, like Amber. Like you still have what is it like? Warcraft, Psyche, and what's the other one?
There are 4. It's warfare, psyche, endurance, and strength.
That's it. Yes. Right, because I forgot Gerald would suck to everything but strength. It just threw people at stuff.
Gerard, yes.
Gerard, not Gerald. You know who I was talking about.
I knew exactly who you were talking about. No, there are. I do think that there are games that technically don't have stats. They exist. They're all more about sort of. They tend to be more narratively focused.
Yes.
So it's more about you've got descriptors about who your character is, and like there aren't numerical stats, which is it totally works. It's totally reasonable, understandable. So you've got a lot of sort of descriptors for what your character is, as opposed to numerical values for stuff, and So the vast majority of games I have played over the years run off of some number of main numerical characteristics, and then there are some. Then they have a few like they often have sort of secondary characteristics that are figured off of the primaries. Either by formulas or they're based on the primaries or what have you. D&D is as D&D sort of has the primary stats and no real secondaries.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much.
Feng Shui has primary and secondary stats. There are secondary stats that are based off of the primaries generally. Uh, Hero System has the primary and figured characteristics. Up until 6th edition, where they got rid of the figured characteristics because
They gotta shut up.
honestly, because some of the stats were too efficient. Honestly, some of the primaries were too efficient. Dex and strength were just way too efficient, basically.
Yeah, strength is pretty damn efficient. Not gonna lie. Um, Although it gets less important and the more science fiction-y the game is.
You'd think that. The amount of secondary characteristics you get from strength is really astonishing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of GURPS.
Yes, oh no, GURPS. Yeah.
The more science fiction-y the game in GURPS, the less strength is important.
Strength's not that in a low fantasy game. Strength's not super important either. No, GURPS has two stats that are critically important, and then there's strength and health.
Right.
Dex and int are basically everything in GURPS.
All your stats are based on.
All your skills are based on Dex and int. All of them. Strength determines how much you can carry and how hard you hit in melee. Health is how hard is it to kill me. That's it.
Yeah.
Also, I think there's one skill that's based on health.
So to put it simply, like, dump all your points in dump all your points in Dex, and then have some strength in there so you don't like fall over wearing a flannel.
Honestly, some of the most brokenly efficient melee characters in low fantasy GURPS games I've seen had strength 8. They bought their strength down. It was described to me as the group was described to me as the eyeball brigade.
Stab everything in the eyes.
Yep. They fought with they bought fencing. They had really high dex, and they would just do cold shot eyeballs. I'm not joking. It was hideously.
I can totally believe it. I can totally believe it. And that is one problem I have with GURPS is the stats are not equal.
No, they're not. They really aren't.
Like, not even remotely.
And they all cost the same.
Yep.
That's the thing Hero System does, is that yes, the stats aren't equal. Guess what? They cost different things.
Yeah. Strength is dirt cheap in Hero System.
And it's way underpriced.
Yeah.
That's the problem with 5th edition Hero. Up through 5th edition, strength is definitively undercosted. Because you get so many good secondary characteristics, and it affects your melee damage. And how much you can carry. And how far you can throw things. And how far you can jump. And yet it's only the second most efficient stat in the game. The most efficient is Dex.
Yeah.
Of course, we're talking about just purely from a combat standpoint. I mean, but there are a lot of skills that are based on Dex, so I love Hero System, but it does have a couple of flaws here and there.
Well, no system is perfect.
No, there aren't.
If it were, we'd all be playing that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Adapting it for our favorite, whatchamacallit, thing.
Genre. Campaign.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I've played so I honestly feel that the way you handle stats really sort of, I think, ties into what sort of subgenre you're going for, I guess. And the relative merits of how important your stats are really does depend on the genre, honestly.
The genre and what kind of game you're playing.
Yeah. So I mean, I do think that the types of stats does tie in. Uh, like honestly, looking at the classic D&D stats, you always have that feeling of, okay, well, yeah, strength makes sense, dexterity makes sense. They all make a certain amount of sense as sort of statistics. The only one sort
Right.
of might be a little squirrely is charisma.
Right. I can understand that. I mean, you could replace charisma with, like, say, presence
Yeah, and
or
that's
something like that.
honestly like the honestly that would be the probably the right way to handle it. I mean, I don't know. I that's it. But yeah, like the way D&D is always treat the way D&D tends to treat charisma as a as from a mechanical statistic standpoint is it really is more sort of your presence, force, or personality than most other things people tend to associate with calling it charisma.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, intimidate is based on charisma in every version of Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. There are ways to base it on strength in a couple of editions. Like there are ways to get it to be based on your strength stat, but
Yeah, like it usually involves a feat or some other significant investment.
right. But yeah, I, which is, it's one of those things I've always sort of looked at charisma. It's the one stat that I've always thought was a little squirrel, especially when like various classes end up basing their spell casting on charisma.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like, no, okay, at this point it's not charisma. It is your force of personality.
yeah. Well, it's the same thing with wisdom. Wisdom is much more of your willpower, to tell the truth.
Yeah,
Because
pretty
again,
much.
a lot of spell casting is based
But
on
like,
wisdom.
given that it's usually clerical divine spellcasting, I can sort of understand why it might still be called
It's
wisdom.
also your resistance versus mind affecting stuff.
Right.
Um, there's a lot of stuff based on wisdom that's like more about like sheer like fuck you itedness.
But it also drives perception in most forms of D&D.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Well, not. It drives spot searches based on intelligence.
No, search is based on perception also, on wisdom also.
No, search is based on intelligence because it's setting up that I distinctly remember this being the weird thing about third ed D&D in
Okay,
particular was that search was based on intelligence because it's systematically looking for stuff, while spot is just noticing something as you're going along.
you're right. It's been a long time since I played third ed D&D because I don't like it. Uh, and yeah, you're right. You're right. It is. Now I'm thinking about it. It's been a long time since I played it.
I distinctly remember that and thinking, actually liking that distinction.
I can see it. And that's fine. Honestly, I've always felt that perception should just be a stat.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Because you can be a pretty intuitive guy, but still be oblivious.
Yeah, and you can be, you can be very perceptive and not, particularly wise or smart or clever.
Right.
That's one of the minor issues I have with GURPS. Honestly, is that your perception is based on your intelligence. It's a direct thing, and it's based on your perception is equal to your intelligence roll in hero system also, but your base characteristics rolls in the hero system tend to be a little bit don't escalate quite as quickly as they do in GURPS because there's a formula for it, and the way you the way you become actually actively good at perception in hero is by buying enhanced senses and shit, or buying things that make you better at noticing shit.
Mm.
In general, like. I mean, so someone who's very smart, like like intelligence 20, which is very high in hero, would
Right.
have a 13 or less perception check, which is good. But that's like someone who's got 15 intelligence, which is noticeably lower has a 12 or less, and someone with average intelligence, is at an 11 or less. And those are big chunks on the 3-6 bell curve.
Right.
But then you buy enhanced perception for like a couple of points, and boom, all of a sudden you got +1 to perception checks.
Yeah.
Right back up the curve. It's very easy to get yourself back into the realm of I can perceive things without spending a ton of points, and not having to sacrifice your. My character is not supposed to be super smart.
Right.
But I don't want to be oblivious to everything around me.
Yeah, and that's one of the strengths of the hero system. But again, the problem with the hero system is that it's so fucking crazy to build a character.
And the reason is because hero system's biggest strength and its biggest weakness is that you can do anything.
Yep.
Which means you have to be able to do anything, which means there's a lot of options. Yeah, I freely admit that Hero is. I understand why people find Hero daunting. I totally get it.
It's not daunting. It's a friggin' like eldritch in its cosmic horror. Like, once you get playing, it's a lot of fun, but building that character.
Honestly, I see the thing I've always found with I'm such a terrible person to. The thing I've always found about Hero is that most people, virtually everybody I know, there are except you're one of the that I know who have sat down and spent time puzzling out how to build a character in Hero, eventually find it actually not that it ends up making sense to them after a while.
Sure.
But you have to sit down and do it.
Just sit down and do it. The problem, I don't know. It's just it doesn't click right in my brain for some reason.
I know, and I
probably got this giant blind spot. Like, I don't know, I'm missing brain cells or something. Too many drugs in college.
Well, the big thing, honestly, Eric, is the majority of my gamer friends that I gamed with for a long time, like through high school and college. We're all mathy types.
Oh yeah. No, I do not do the maths.
Right. So I'm my degree's in economics. My friend Peter Shaw is a computer scientist. My friend Joey is an engineer.
It's not my fault. I went to art school.
But
the red dwarf that works for everything.
Right. So the vast majority of the people I got into that I've gotten into playing Hero System with, they're all people who are used to dealing with mathematics. It's the way their brain works. And so when I started trying to teach Hero System to people who aren't that, it's a stumbling block for me. So I'm like, no, the math's really easy. Oh wait, right. Math isn't your thing. Fuck.
Right.
I remember having a discussion with somebody. I was like, character creation in Hero is not that hard as long as you can handle basic algebra. And then I'm like, oh god. Okay.
I think that was where we were doing the fantasy one, and then you remembered you're talking the room you had in there had like two classically trained artists and Chris is really bright, but math is also not necessarily his thing.
Right. So Leland and I are sitting here going, oh god.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting here going, oh god, Leland is not getting the problem.
Yeah, Leland is not clicking the problem. I don't understand what the problem is, guys. Well, this seems needlessly complicated.
And on the surface, I totally get why Hero can seem needlessly complicated. I totally get it. The thing is that all the stuff that seems needlessly complicated drives directly into the base math of the game.
Right.
And it's exposed. They just don't hide it. And
which is fine, and I understand the need for the complexity because the system is designed to let you do anything.
Right.
So I get that. I understand the need for the complexity. It's just Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, no, honestly, when I next time I run a hero system game with most of the people that aren't my Thursday crew, uh, uh, I honestly need to basically spend I need to do a lot of prep work creating package deals and shit. So you just basically so I basically say, okay, what do you want to play? Like, here's a list of various sort of package deals. Pick the stuff that you want. It'll tell you how much it costs and what you write down on your character sheet.
Mm.
You don't have to actually pre-plan what you're buying.
Well, that's more or less what we did for the
Yes, that's exactly what we did. That's the wonderful
it made
thing
it
about
much easier.
that's the wonderful thing about that sort of superhero generation system in the Champions book is it's literally just a bunch of different sort of packages of stuff that you sort of go chunk 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 done.
Yep, you all click it together, and then you go, okay, I want to dump this stuff in exchange for more of this stuff.
Right,
and that worked. That worked really well, actually.
Yeah, and that's the thing I need to sit down and set up for. If I want to run a hero fantasy game, I need to sit down and set that up.
Right.
And the big stumbling block for that is setting up the magic packages.
Yep. Yeah.
Ow, my head. All right. So I think there was one other little bit in there that Clockwork Grunt wanted us to go over. Oh yeah, the games that use a variety of dice like D&D versus ones that only use one type of die. All right. So the whole dice, how you use dice in role playing games. I totally get why D&D uses multiple dice.
Yep.
And like D&D uses. So here's the thing about D&D using multiple dice: is it kind of doesn't actually. It does definitively, but the actual core mechanics of D&D, historically across the board, the core sort of what drives how the game actually plays is it runs off of D20s. All the other dice just sort of are there to represent different scales of damage. That's literally all they do. Because a dagger does a D4 damage because it's smaller and less deadly, less immediately deadly than say a sword, which does D8 damage.
Right.
And conversely, the big tough fighter gets D10s for their hit points because they're big and tough, whereas the frail wizard gets D4s because they're frail. That's just determining scale. But the core mechanic of the game runs off of the D20 for your attack rolls, for your skill rolls, etc. So most games that use multiple different types of dice, that's the way it works. There's usually one type of die in there that is the core die, and everything else is just in there to allow you to have scales of various things that are not tied to the raw core mechanic. I can only think of one game where that's not the case, off the top of my head. And I've forgotten the name of it. Shoot. It was, what?
It was Myriad
Myriad Song. Myriad Song is a new one that I hadn't thought of. Yeah, the Cardinal system does that. And it's similar to, what's the name of the game? It was a FASA game, which means it's insane.
Was this fucking Earth Dawn?
Earth Dawn, that's it, yes.
Earth Dawn, the batshit insane pile of lunacy.
Yes.
With a really awesome, world. So, a FASA game?
Yes. So, yeah, because there was basically, as you scaled up in terms of, it was basically a roll multiple dice, add them together to create a bell curve system, basically, of success. If I remember correctly, it's been a while. But the more skilled you were, the larger dice you would use. So, you'd start off rolling, individual dice, like your D6, then D8, then D10, then D20. And then you'd start rolling, 2D8 or what have you. It would scale, it would, hop around scale with, multiple dice, adding them together to get a different range of stuff. And that is... It's an interesting way of sort of detailing progression in terms of your ability. which I'm not.
Fantasy Flight Star Wars system does a similar thing, I think. Use proprietary dice, but they're like D8s, D6s, D12s, just
Right.
with wacky symbols on them. And if I had some, I'd be much more inclined to speak more knowledgeably about it. But I don't, so I'm not sure how things go to how it works, which is annoying.
Right. And then we played a little bit of Myriad Song, which is the Cardinal
Yep.
system, which does something similar. And that you've got you add up various your relative stat and your relative skill, which all have different types of dice, and that's what your sort of dice pool for that particular skill is.
Hmm.
That particular task is, I should say. Because like okay, we need you to do a reflex, whatever. I forget what the stats were. It's like mind, reflex, and guns check. So you add your mind, your reflex, and your guns together, and they're all different types of dice, and that's sort of your total. Yep. And that's fairly cool. It's an interesting way of dealing with things. I don't think that was additive. Now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, right. There was a difficulty threshold. You had to each of your dice had to exceed the threshold in Cardinal. It's supposed to be adding them up. But again, it's an interesting way of handling that sort of thing. But yeah, so it all comes down to, honestly, the big difference in dice rolling mechanics, or mechanically for core systems, isn't sort of what types of dice you're using, but it's more about whether you are generating the sort of probability curve you're generating, basically, and how you generate it. And whether you're sort of trying to determine whether you're trying to roll equal to or less than a particular threshold, or whether you're trying to meet certain numbers of successes, basically. Those are the two main systems I can think of off the top of my head. So, D&D and Hero System and GURPS all are based on difficulty thresholds. So you've got to roll equal to or less than, or equal or greater than, depending on how you phrase things.
On the actual system, right.
A difficulty number. And so you've got, basically, it creates a probability curve. And they're all technically, they're all technically curves. It's just D&D has a linear difficulty curve because it is a strict percentile. D&D is a percentile base, is a percentile system. So like there are systems where you roll D100 and you're trying to it's a percentage. It's like and you could look immediately and say, okay, I've got an 85% chance of succeeding because my skill check is an 85 or less.
Right.
D&D is also a percentage system. It's just got it's just, since you're rolling a D20, it's a fixed. It's less granular. Intervals. It's in 5% intervals. It's less granular than a percentage one. Similarly, if you're rolling like a single D6, it's still again a percentage system. It's 16.67 repeating, 16.6 repeating percent chance for each number going up the curve.
I like dice pools.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. GURPS and Hero and games like that, and oh God, there are a couple other games. I think there are a couple games that they are running on bell curves. I think one version.
Heroes,
I forget the system that uses 2d6 and adds them together.
Iron Kingdoms.
Well, yeah, Iron Kingdoms is base Iron Kingdoms. Yeah, right. So you're basically generating a bell curve by rolling. GURPS and Hero uses 3d6, and you add them together, and there's a curve of probability, which is sort of shaped like a bell. It's sort of most of the results are towards the middle of the curve since you're adding the results together. Whereas with this is all statistics and probability stuff.
Right.
And Iron Kingdoms has a 2d6, which is a more jagged curve than a 3d6 one. The 3d6 bell curve is actually quite elegant in my personal opinion. The nice thing about Iron Kingdoms is that you can add and subtract dice, which changes the curve.
Which changes the curve considerably, and that's something I really like about IK.
Yeah,
the ability to add and subtract dice is pretty fucking awesome.
Yep, I agree completely. It's actually quite neat. I like it a lot. And so, but these are all sort of threshold systems, difficulty class systems. The other one are the ones where you're sort of tracking. You're basically there's a target number for on. You roll a bunch of different dice, and you're trying to get a number of successes. Where you're trying to basically the difficultiest task is say you have to roll a 5, and you roll a bunch of d6s to see for example, and however many 5s you roll is how many successes you get. And if you get one success, that's your sort of basic sort of success. And the more you get, the more effective your check. The more you succeed, effectively, for the most part. I'm getting that roughly correct, right?
Math, words, math.
Well, I'm talking about games like
bananas.
I'm talking about games like Shadowrun, Eric.
Oh, okay. Yes. Sorry. I totally got lost in your like percentages and everything, and just
I moved on from that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So no, for which are mostly the dice pool games, as far as I know.
Right.
Almost all dice pool games, you're not adding the dice together. You're rolling them to try to get a target number.
Yeah, you're rolling them looking for a target number on that die, and sometimes they explode up, sometimes they explode down.
Sometimes they don't
Sometimes
explode at all.
explode at all. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm rolling a fistful of d6s, and the difficulty is never higher than 6.
Yep.
Although, I can't think of one where the things didn't explode up, because making things more difficult is usually a good thing in these games.
Yeah, I don't know any of them off the top of my head. I have played a sum total of 3 of them, and I don't like any of them that much.
Fair enough.
I'm not a big fan of the dice pool games. It's stylistically not my sort of thing. I like they're fine. They're not bad. It's just not my thing.
I like them, but I played a lot of Warhammer. If you're not rolling giant fistfuls of dice, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. That's sort of, and for me, actually, honestly, most of the dice pool games I've played, it's not so much the system that I don't like, the dice system I don't like. It's most of the rest of the game around it. I've played Shadowrun, and I'm not a big fan of Shadowrun's world. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not my thing. And Shadowrun's system is fine. Is mostly fine, I would say.
Yeah, it's not without its flaws.
Right.
Obviously, it was originally a FASA game. It's going to have its flaws.
Right. I've played another one that's the various World of Darkness games run with something similar.
Yep.
And the game worlds for World of Darkness are sort of okay-ish. I like some of them better than others. I've never played a World of Darkness game where I thought the system was good. The actual mechanical system.
I will agree with that. I haven't played their new World of Darkness, but I'm remembering the old 90s ones, and they were either so freeform you wonder what the dice were even supposed to do, like Mage.
Yep.
Or so restrictive you kind of wonder what the point is. It's like the one that fit the balance for me was Werewolf, and that's because Werewolf let me go to the friggin' be a giant monster and eat people. And that, let's be fair, that's pretty much how you win Eric every time.
Fair enough. Yeah, the only other one I've played was I played a little bit of Legend of the Five Rings. And didn't like the system.
I could be convinced to play a game of Legend of the Five Rings, if only because I have done exactly one fantasy Asian game, and it was a session in high school.
Right. Oh, again, I actually conceptually like a lot about the setting. I just hated the Legend of Five Rings system. Hated it.
I could see myself having a lot of fun playing a crab.
Oh, sure. You totally did the crab. And in the right campaign where people, if they allowed it, you'd also probably enjoy playing an Izumi.
It's a Skaven yes! Although without the crazy super science.
Yeah.
Or the evil. Like the Nezumi are pretty much anti-evil, but you know.
Oh my god. So yeah. But it's really interesting that like how few of the dice pool games I've played that where there's something about the where there's like the dice pool mechanic is a fine mechanic, but almost all the games I played that has something about that use it has something about them I really don't like, and it's really weird. I don't know why that's happened. Like as I said, White Wolf has a problem that it's White Wolf. I mean, let's be honest here.
Right. White Wolf has a lot of. White Wolf was really innovative when it first came out, and that it sort of shook up the whole RPG community and everything, and sort of made it sexy. Air quotes there. But looking back on it, I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Pull the back of your hand off your forehead. Oh, you can't. It's bolted there.
Oh my god, yeah. Wow, it was amazing.
Like, Jesus Christ, guys. That's a lot of fucking angst, guys.
All is darkness, Eric. All is darkness.
Screw it. I'm a werewolf. I'm going to eat people.
I mean, I'll flatly say I really like the World of Darkness sort of world game sort of setting that I liked was Mage, but nothing about Mage I liked mechanically at all.
No, there was nothing that made any fucking sense about Mage mechanically. But what a cool world.
Yeah.
That was actually one of my first exposures to like straight up modern fantasy. Because, vampires in modern age, whatever. Werewolves in modern age, whatever. Changeling was really weird and kind of awesome, but it was much more of like two different worlds and hopping between them kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst Mage was just sort of like, oh yeah, all this shit's happening like right here, like reality is fluid. Did I mention reality is fluid?
What? But what?
That blew my mind in freaking high school. I was like, what, really? What a neat idea.
I loved the concept of paradox, too. It was like, wow, that's really cool.
It's reality slapping you around for fucking with it too much.
It's a damn shame the actual system wasn't a system.
Yeah, it really is.
Like, seriously, like I look at that and I'm like, wow, I know what you're trying. Like, now I look back at it, I know what you're trying to do. God, Amber did that better.
Yeah.
Amber understood how to do this shit. First off, they said, okay, no, stop, no, fuck the dice, get rid of the dice, gone. Like, seriously, Mage as a diceless game would have worked so much better.
Yes.
Ugh.
And the whole like central conflict between in Mage is also really cool.
Yep.
Because you had the technocracy, which is trying to impose their vision of reality on the world, which is a very like static and ordered idea of how things should work.
Right.
And not necessarily evil in principle, but really evil in practice.
Right.
And then all the other like, for example, free mages, for lack of a better term, trying to keep reality fluid and capable of warping and changing as necessary to people.
Right.
Instead of forcing people into the box that the technocracy had, you had people trying to force a reality into the boxes people needed, and that was a really cool conflict.
I agree completely. As I said, I love the Mage. I love Mage Ascension conceptually.
Yeah.
It's just a goddamn shame it was a terrible game.
Shitty system.
Oh, God. All right. I think that's going to do it for tonight, though. We could ramble on for God knows how long about most of this stuff, but I think we've covered most of what we needed to cover tonight, and we've been going for a good long while.
We have.
So I think we should wrap up here. We did have a question from a viewer this week. That's part of the reason I want to wrap up shortly. And I'm going to we'll cover it this week. We got one from Jacob, who says, "Hi, Eric and Peter. I just listened to your video about
Hello.
great characters, and I noticed you're always speaking from the perspective of a player who actually wants to create a quote good end quote PC, in terms of a great PC, not in terms of quality, not like good or evil. I'm wondering though, do you have any tricks on the problem of making players want to play a great character? The obvious way would be XP rewards for good role playing and such, but maybe renowned veterans have better methods about getting the players to do that."
Put them in wood chippers.
Bad Eric. Okay. Yeah, that's actually a really tricky. It's a really tricky thing, and I wish I had a good answer for it. Beyond. See, the thing is that it really feels like the XP rewards for role playing thing is more sort of trying to get people to come out and actually, you know, play their character and role play their character, not so much creating a quality character per se. I mean that ties into it definitely, but part of the thing that I want to stress before we go and delve further into this is it is very important to remember that different people want different things out of role playing games.
Yes.
And there are a reasonable number of people who are much less interested in the role playing part of it than they are in the other stuff. The sort of the world, the stuff going on in the world, the story that's going on, even if they're not directly interacting with it, and sort of the mechanical game parts of it also. And some people are not really that interested in doing a lot of deep role playing. That's not their big thing. And you're not gonna, even with XP rewards, like if you're offering XP rewards for role playing, it will often feel to them that it'll often feel like honestly will almost a lot of ways end up feeling like they're being penalized for their preferences. So the XP rewards for good role playing is a really double-edged sword. I'm actually really hesitant to do that in general. I used to do that a lot, and I realized at some point that it really, part of the problem with the XP for good role playing thing is a good chunk of that is really subjective. And so, like, what one person considers good role playing, what someone else consider being just clowning around and being silly. Or it's hard to I.
The subjective thing is the bigger problem I see with XP rewards for good role playing is because it is very subjective. And great, I know you're role playing your sad and maudlin loner hero, but it's kind of getting in the way of everyone else's fun in the game. Yes, yes, crunching the numbers for all of this to have the best fight works for your math obsessed superhero. Like, but yeah, it's really subjective. Like, I might be just fucking off, and someone might get fucking around with a intentionally goofy character and get XP rewards, for example. Like, well, otherwise I might be like doing what I think is like excellent role playing and not be rewarded at all, and that's the issue. It's really subjective.
But as to sort of ways to get people to be more interested in actually role playing their characters, also interested in creating sort of more interesting characters to role play. Honestly, my biggest tip for doing that is give them opportunities. Yeah. Throw things at them where they have a chance to interact with NPCs and do stuff. And sometimes they'll come out of their shell and start doing that. And some people have developed like that's honestly how I've seen players who were sort of tended to be quiet and mostly focus on the combat stuff actually start role playing is just by giving them opportunities and don't not forcing it on them, but like sort of seeing what they're sort of listening to what they talk about, like when they talk about their character at all, because almost everybody will talk about their character a little bit, like their character's personality or what have you, and just like or their background, and just throw little sort of little cookies at them occasionally. The other thing I tend to do with groups when I'm running games with new players I've not played with a lot before, so I don't know what their sort of tendencies are when they're role playing, is I will usually ask them to. This is one of the few. It's one of those the rare times where I will actually ask the players to come up with a little bit of a background for their characters. Like I usually assume players will do so with groups I play with. But like, if it's a group of players I've never played with before, I'll usually ask them to come up with a little something about their character's background, just so that I have something to work, so that I, as the game master, have something to work with. But also allows me to figure out some things about their characters. And when I run into players who don't have a lot of, are not really that interested, don't seem very interested in role playing, I can throw them a little bit of a little hooks here and there that they can latch onto if they want to. That's the thing. I don't believe in forcing players to come out of their shell in that way, largely because different people are more or less comfortable with that.
One of the things that can really help with that, I've found, is having them play with players who are much more likely to come out about with their role playing.
Sure.
Or much more comfortable and extroverted about it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not particularly happy about that word, but it's the best one I can think of off the top of my head.
Sure.
Like, yeah, I mean, nothing inspires people like seeing other people have fun and makes them
I agree with that completely.
And like if someone is having fun role playing their character, then nothing's going to make them want to role play more than wanting to get in on that fun.
I agree with that actually, and that's the situation where you start throwing the little sort of options for them to get in on stuff.
Yes.
But again, if they seem reticent to get into it, don't push them too hard. That's only going to.
That's only going to make them. That's only going to close them off or make them resent it.
Yeah,
and that's not what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's sort of the best advice I've got. Honestly, is just A, give them the opportunity, and B, and mind you, if your entire group's like that, just throw them little cookies here or there. Like, honestly, if the entire group's like that, and they're all sort of and they're all basically sort of mechanically gamist types that are really interested in the mechanics and gaming of the system, maybe then the XP rewards might be the way to go, because that's gonna be one of their. It might have been XP rewards, but like sort of if you can get them to do it a little bit, and then they like get some sort of reward that, like if it's like a game like in-game reward for them of some sort, maybe not XP, but maybe like something that is good for their character. That could work too.
Yeah, like they've been wanting this really expensive, hard to find cookie. Build a little adventure around it.
Yep.
And where there's little actual die rolling, but a lot of convincing people to let you get in there, or like, or just like slipping in, or just talking with people.
Yeah, but again, don't overdo that part of it either. Obviously,
yeah, because they're still going to want to roll. They're still going to want to bash some skulls. Everyone likes bashing skulls.
Yeah, the other, that's I think that's most of it really. I'm blanking. There was something else. There's some other idea I had, and I'm blanking on it at the moment. Oh, right. The other thing sort of ties into sort of the other thing you can do, honestly, is when the players are sort of submitting their characters, come up with a very simple, very like 5 or 6 question questionnaire, like little questions about their characters, backgrounds. That used to say just give me a 1 sentence answer to each of these questions, or 1 sentence or more answer to each of these questions. What is your character's favorite food? What is their favorite thing to do when they're alone? When they're alone. What's their favorite thing to do with friends? What is that? What is their greatest fear? What is their greatest dream? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
If just like 5 to 10 questions like that, we'll get them thinking about that sort of stuff. And
Plus,
it might help.
Little questionnaires are kind of fun, honestly.
I think they're a lot of fun sometimes. It's just something that occurred to me that you could think about, another way to work at it. Anywho, I think that pretty much answers the question mostly. I think, hopefully. Anyways, we should probably wrap things up here, though. Thank you to everybody for joining us. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. We hope you found it helpful, or useful, or interesting, or at least entertaining as we blathered on about
random bullshit.
Random bullshit. Thank you to Clockwork Grunt for the topic suggestion. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yep.
I'm not sure how well we stayed on it, but we tried.
We were mostly on topic for once. Mostly. And we only ranted about D&D for, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
At any rate, thank you, everybody, for joining us, as I said. If you've got viewer questions like the one that we just covered from Jacob, please do email them to us. Our email address is surlygrognards@yahoo.com, surlygrognards@yahoo.com. Or if you're listening to us on YouTube, feel free to drop us a comment on YouTube, and we'll try to get to those questions there. So yeah, we try to save time at the end of each episode for viewer questions, and we had one this week that we could cover. Hooray! We love getting those questions, guys. We really do. They're often interesting. Sometimes what looks like a simple question will spit out into an entire episode. That's happened a few times. We also, speaking of that, love show topic suggestions. Love them.
Those are awesome. Seriously,
they are the bestest things ever. It means we don't spend an entire episode talking about, God, what was that? What did we talk about that where we just ramble on talking about random bullshit? We spent an episode
the one where I just basically ranted for an hour and a half about friggin' Batman versus Superman?
Yes.
Okay.
It did turn into something of conversation on Superman, though.
That's true.
At any rate, instead of getting random bullshit like that, we can talk about things you actually want to hear us talk about. So please send us those topics. We love them. Love them, love them, love them. Same email address or in the comments or what have you. If you've got feedback for us, ways we can make the show better, constructive criticism, etc., email us. Leave a comment. We really, really need this stuff, guys. We want to make the show better, and the only way we really can do that is we hear from you guys and tell us what we can do better.
Yes.
And other than that, we record the show Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, usually, on hitbox.tv/mecha-gm. I tweet out when the show's about to go live. Keep an eye out if you want to know when the show's about to go live, as I said. Or if we've got to change schedules because, one of us is sick,
someone's
or
on fire, or lost in extra-dimensional space.
Oh, that was a pain in the ass that time.
Jesus Christ, man. Just, fuck you, Yogg-Sothoth.
Oh, God. Or if we're being attacked by ninjas. That was a pain in the ass. Oh, my God, that
was
sucked.
Less of a pain in the ass, because there are a lot of them, and we all know the rule about ninjas.
Yeah, but some of them were bears, Eric. They were really annoying. Bear ninjas are the worst, man.
At least they're not wearing power armor.
Yeah,
Power-armored bear ninjas are pretty terrible.
Well, in general, power-armored bears are the best, though.
That's true.
At any rate... We've lost it, guys. Sorry. Yeah, I tweet out when we're going. I tweet out when we're going live. my Twitter handle's at MechaGM. Keep an eye on that. No dash in there or anything like that. Anyways, that's going to do it for this week, guys. Eric and I have both lost like where we are. And
Yeah, it sort of slipped off there.
Whee! Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.